truth, and that we can indeed, hopefully, retrieve Ken's remains, to bring him home and give him a decent burial.
It may well be somewhere on these streets that Ken Bigley's remains lie buried. But even if that's true, getting access to the site may not be easy. Fallujah remains a battleground and a stronghold for insurgents, the scene of frequent bombings and attacks, like this one just last week. Whilst they say they can't be sure it's true, here at the Foreign Office they are taking the claims seriously and say they will investigate it thoroughly. It's understood that detectives will travel to Turkey to interview Louis Sachar, but that may not be until his trial is over. For the family of Ken Bigley, the hope will be that today's news means that the long wait to bring his body home may finally be coming to an end. Gordon Carrera, BBC News.
The Attorney General is to review the sentence of a paedophile who repeatedly raped a 9-year-old girl while under community supervision. Kevin Hazelwood was told he could be eligible for parole in 5.5 years. Lord Goldsmith will examine the case to see whether the sentence was unduly lenient. Tony Blair has said the government will hassle and hound anyone suspected of being involved with organised crime. In a series of emails published in tomorrow's Observer, the Prime Minister also claims the legal and political establishment is out of touch with public opinion on how to tackle crime. Well, let's talk to our political correspondent, James Hardy, who's at Westminster now. James, what's the substance of what Tony Blair seems to be saying?
Well, it's in this rather extraordinary and lengthy exchange of emails with Henry Porter, a columnist on The Observer, in which Mr. Blair mounts a very, very robust defence against the charge that his government has eroded civil liberties. And he says that the civil liberties of the law-abiding majority must come above those of the minority who no longer respect the law. And he goes further. He says, he's completely unapologetic, he says he would go further if he had the chance. And he raises the idea, for example, of restricting the movement of people suspected of involvement in organised crime, of jailing people who sell drugs to children automatically, and of seizing the cars of suspected drug dealers unless they can prove they've bought them legally. Now, this all really amounts to one thing, and this is Tony Blair showing that he is on top of really one of the main concerns of the public in the local elections, and that, of course, is law and order.
James, thank you very much indeed. The average price of unleaded petrol in Britain has hit more than 95 pence a litre, and analysts believe fuel prices will stay high throughout the summer. The warning came as world finance leaders met to discuss record oil prices, fueled by a surge in demand. Daniel Bircher reports.
Diesel breaking through the £1 a litre mark, a reality today at this service station west of London, and there's more pain to come for motorists as soaring oil prices continue to push up costs.
At these prices, you think about getting a smaller car. You really do.
It's not good. You know, I mean, we're not going to be able to afford to drive for much longer if it keeps going up.
Not a shortage, say oil companies, but global demand making crude more expensive, and that's working through to the forecourt. Retailers are warning of uncomfortable times ahead for motorists. Diesel at £1 a litre won't be uncommon, and the price of unleaded has been going up too. Just 2 years ago, a litre of unleaded cost a little over 75 pence on average. By last April, that had gone up to 83.5 pence. And when the figures are calculated after this weekend, the price is expected to be more than 96.1 pence, a new record.
I think we will reach new highs for petrol and diesel prices within the next few days, and then pressure on price through the second quarter. Relief on petrol price won't arrive until probably around about end of August, September this year.
So why are oil prices so high? Tension over Iran is one factor, and there are concerns about supplies from Nigeria, where 500,000 barrels a day of production has been lost. At the same time, demand in China and India continues to grow, and that demand has prompted the Chancellor Gordon Brown to call for increased production. Today, he's been meeting senior finance ministers at an International Monetary Fund meeting in Washington. Oil prices high on the agenda, and petrol shortages in the US market are another factor for high costs in Britain.
The UK, among other European countries, is an exporter of petrol to the United States, and as they build up the demand for petrol because of the approaching driving season, this puts greater pressure on petrol supplies in northwestern Europe.
So for motorists here, there's little doubt that prices will stay high throughout the summer. Daniel Bircher, BBC News.
The Queen's 80th birthday celebrations are continuing this evening with a gala event at Windsor Castle. The private party's been attended by family and a select group of the Queen's close friends. Tomorrow, the royal family will attend a service of Thanksgiving in St George's Chapel. Now, with news of Liverpool's progress to the FA Cup final and the rest of the day's sport, here's Chris Hollins. Chris?
Thanks very much, Darren. Very good evening. Chelsea's dream of winning the league and cup double is over after Liverpool won their FA Cup semi-final at Old Trafford. They beat Chelsea 2-1 and will now face either West Ham or Middlesbrough in the final at the Millennium Stadium next month. Here's Andy Swiss.
They've met 10 times in the last 2 years, so you might think Chelsea v Liverpool would be getting a bit dull. Not on this evidence. Didier Drogba should have put Chelsea ahead. But if that was bad, what followed for the Blues was even worse. It wasn't exactly a thunderbolt from John Arne-Riise, but when the wall crumbles as neatly as Chelsea's did, that hardly matters. Things didn't improve for them. Just after the break, John Terry thought he'd scored, but the referee thought otherwise, and Liverpool capitalised in quite stunning fashion. Luis Garcia seemed to have settled things, but finally Chelsea was stirred into life, and Drogba made the most of some defensive dithering. Suddenly they were back in it. All they needed was one final chance, and 4 minutes into injury time, Joe Cole blew it. So no League Cup double for Chelsea, and against this Liverpool display, they can have few complaints. Andy Swiss, BBC News.
Now, highlights of that game and, of course, all the action from the Premiership will be shown on Match of the Day after the news. So, if you don't want to know the scores, it's time to turn the volume down on the television and look away for just a moment. Robbie Keane scored a controversial goal for Tottenham as they drew with Arsenal. That result keeps Spurs 4 points ahead of their North London rivals in the race for that last Champions League place. At the bottom, Svetoslav Todorov and Matt Taylor helped Portsmouth to a precious win against Sunderland. That result lifts them out of the relegation zone. Elsewhere, Bolton thrashed Charlton. Birmingham slipped back into trouble with a 0-0 draw at Everton, and West Brom lost at Newcastle. So Portsmouth have a 2-point advantage over Birmingham in the fight for Premiership survival with just 2 games to go. West Brom look almost certain to go down. Well, Alan Shearer was at St James's Park today for Newcastle's match against West Brom, but he wasn't in his beloved black and white shirt. The former England captain confirmed his retirement this morning. After 10 years at the club and a record 206 goals, injury has forced him to finish his last season 3 games early. He didn't win a trophy for Newcastle, but insists he has no regrets.
When I was a young boy, I wanted to play for Newcastle United. I wanted to wear the number 9 shirt, and I wanted to score goals at St James's Park. So I've lived my dream, and I realise how lucky I am to have done that.
Well, in the Scottish Premier League, Hibernian beat Hearts 2-1 in the Edinburgh derby. Abdisalam Ben Yaloun scored the winner for Hibs. That means Rangers could go within 2 points of second-place Hearts if they beat Celtic tomorrow. There are also wins for Dunfermline and Inverness. The matches at Aberdeen and Falkirk ended in draws. Bath have been knocked out of Rugby Union's Heineken Cup. They were beaten 18-9 in their semi-final by Biarritz in San Sebastian. Dimitri Yashvili kicked 5 penalties for the French champions. Bath now need to win their 2 remaining league games to have any chance of qualifying for next season's competition. Brian Noble has made the perfect start as the new Wigan coach. He watched his side score 9 tries as they beat Huddersfield 46-14 at the Galp Harm Stadium. Despite that, Wigan remained bottom of the Super League. And Michael Schumacher has made Formula 1 history in Imola. He's broken Ayrton Senna's record by claiming the 66th pole position of his career. Britain's Jenson Button will start alongside him at the San Marino Grand Prix. That's it for me. Just time to say good luck to everyone running in the London Marathon tomorrow. Darren.
Chris, thank you. Before we go, a reminder of the main news tonight. Police in Nepal have used tear gas and live ammunition to disperse tens of thousands of pro-democracy demonstrators in the capital, Kathmandu. And you can see more on all of today's stories on BBC News 24, plus a report on the orangutans who are returning home to Indonesia after being smuggled and mistreated abroad. But from Chris and from me, good night.
Good evening. Well, with so much sport going on this weekend, it's quite appropriate that weather-wise it's a game of two halves through this weekend. If you saw the rain today, well, fingers crossed we'll see a lot more sunshine tomorrow, whereas if it was a nice day today, yes, you guessed it, there's rain on the way. All changed, something for everyone. There's been rain today across Scotland and Northern Ireland. It's now pushing into England and Wales. It's not a wall of water, as you can see, but the odd heavy burst in there. Never quite making it to the southeast, not until tomorrow morning. The dividing line between the two contrasting weather types will be somewhere across the Midlands. Certainly a damp start to the day here, 9 o'clock in the morning, but things will improve from the north. Certainly for Northern England, things brightening up quite nicely. And for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a beautiful day. Lots of sunshine around. There'll be a bit of patchy cloud building up, but much better than it was on Saturday. Heading southwards, we head back into the cloud across Wales, some dampness across southern areas, and that'll be the story for across southwest England too. Some drizzly outbreaks of rain, the odd heavier burst, very misty and murky up over the moors as well. Heading eastwards towards the London area for the all-important marathon, it's going to be a cloudy day. There'll be rain around, and again the odd heavier bursts. There'll be some drier spells mixed in, but not much in the way of brightness. The best of that will be across Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, and gradually these brighter conditions edging into North Wales and the North Midlands. Temperatures, well, around about 13, 14, 15 degrees, and the winds will be light. On to Monday, most places becoming dry, more rain in the west later on.
Saturday night on BBC One, and it's Match of the Day, next.
Clinical trials is not an end in itself. It's means to an end. Ultimately, the beneficiary is the patient of tomorrow.
According to the Nuremberg Code, clinical drug trials should be based on informed consent.
It was an experiment and it was completely false to call it as treatment.
This World looks at how some patients in the developing world have become involved in trials without their full knowledge. Drug Trials, The Dark Side, Thursday at 9 on BBC Two.
Now on BBC One, an update from the National Lottery. In the main lotto draw, the winning numbers are 9, 24, 30, 40, 42 and 48. The bonus ball is 15. It looks like there are no winning tickets tonight, so the rollover jackpot for the next draw will be an estimated £8 million. The Lotto extra numbers are 7, 8, 16, 19, 21 and 28. There are no winners tonight, so the jackpot for the next draw has grown to an estimated £4.7 million. And finally, tonight's Thunderball numbers are 4, 8, 9, 15 and 20. The Thunderball itself was number 7,